Welcome. I'm Dr. Maureen Frank, host of today's Lobocast at Sul Ross State University. And joining me are 3 graduate students in the Natural Resources program. So first, I'd like each of you to just say your name, and if you could share your research kind of condensed into one sentence, or if you have the title of your thesis, something like that.
Sweet. Yeah, so I'm Ty Goodwin. Nice to meet y'all or see y'all again. It's been a little while, but I'm back. And I'm a research student looking at really how grazing systems are affecting vegetation communities out here in desert grasslands, and how that might play a role with a certain type of soil types out here, and really how are those interacting and producing different types of vegetation.
All right, thanks.
Hello, my name is Andres. First of all, thank you for the space to explain my project. And I'm working with lemon love grass, and it's an invasive species. I'm working in the south of Alpine and north of Terlingua, trying to figure out which of 3 different treatments can decrease lemon love grass and increase native plants abundance in the region.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, I'm Audrey. I am continuing a project that's been ongoing with Borderlands Research Institute, where we are looking at habitat restoration methods for grassland habitats out in Marfa and Marathon. And we're looking to see how those restorative methods, removing woody encroaching plants, impacts the avian communities, specifically our grassland obligates that are very dependent on good pristine grasslands. Great.
All right, so we've got a lot of plants going on here. So real quick, first, Audrey, what does encroaching plants mean?
So in terms of the grassland habitats out here, we have more of our woody, more shrub-like species like our mesquites, our creosote bush, and our turbush, where they are able to essentially grow into grassland habitats where they hadn't really previously occurred. So they are like encroaching in on those areas. So that's what we mean by encroaching.
Okay, so it sounds like there's something has maybe changed to make that happen?
It's a lot of times it's due to development of the grassland habitat for human use, whether it be ranching or ag, or urban development into more urban type setting if cities are expanding, or conversion for energy production. And a lot of times it's also in tandem with a lack of a fire cycle that used to occur very naturally out here. The fire cycles in the region are pretty oppressed due to human use of the area. And so without that, the shrubs have a better chance of moving into the area.
Got it. Okay, so sometimes things change, and instead of native grass, we get these different brush species. It sounds like sometimes, though, Andres, we get a different kind of grass species. So tell us about lemons and why does that invade here?
Well, lemon love grass is a species comes from Africa. The first interest in lemons in here in the United States was in the 1932 in Arizona. And then in the 40s, the USDA at that time, they started reproducing lemons just because the goal for them was control erosion and support food production for cattle at that time. So the plant in specific was really cool and really good, supporting the weather inconvenience that we have here. So that's why the breeding of that species was hard, and now we have places where lemon love grass is producing monocultures and reducing the native plants in the region.
Explain real quick what you mean by a monoculture.
Well, what is happening is that at the time, lemon love grass is better resisting the conditions that we have here. The high temperatures and the lowest too at the and in a short period because we are in the desert. Some other species have not the same quality to resist it. So lemon love grass can produce seeds twice a year. Lemon love grass can resist the fire, and I'm pretty sure there's some studies that say that lemon love grass can be better when after have a fire event, and also at the time that species is not palatable for cattle is selecting the natives and leaving lemon love grass there. So that give to lemons to have more opportunity to spread the seeds and maybe, not maybe, I'm sure that in Bay is not, how can I say that, increase its abundance.
So it looks like you've got this nice field of green grass, but what you might not be noticing if you're not familiar with it is that that's all one species, in other words, because it's better at surviving here than some of our other native species.
Exactly.
Okay, great. All right, and so then we've got brush sometimes encroaching, causing problems for our native vegetation, sometimes exotic introduced grasses. And Ty, it sounds like cattle affect that somehow. So what do we know about how cattle are impacting the vegetation, and then where is the unknown that you're looking at?
Yeah, so I guess to start it off, we don't really control cattle, right? A cow's going to do what a cow's going to do. It's going to go, it's going to live, it's going to eat food. What really manipulates and drives these vegetation changes that we see, whether it's just lamens or whether we see brush encroachment, is how we as managers really are pushing this animal to go in specific areas to eat specific things at a certain amount of time of the year for a certain intensity. The cow doesn't want to eat everything, and it's also not limited to the cattle. When we look out on a landscape level, especially out here in the Trans-Pecos, it's a lot of goats and sheep ranching is what we've historically had. But cattle are now just a more, everybody likes beef. I like a hamburger. Y'all like a steak, I'm going to guess. And so that's what we still have out here, right? And so when we have these cattle and we have other livestock in an area for a certain amount of time, our plants here aren't really necessarily adapted for this prolonged high-intensity amount of grazing in a certain period of time, whether that's drought, whether that's during the winter, whether that's during the only time of the year we get our 4 inches of rain or whatever it may be. And so the plants have to respond differently. And if we continue doing this year after year, you can sometimes have problems of overgrazing, or where we're just eating so much of that material the plant can't actually respond well to it. It's like eating your mom out of house and home as a teenager boy, if you're like me, and she can't keep getting milk and groceries. The fridge is going to be empty all the time. And so the landscape gets affected by that, and it's kind of a cycle where we get degradation or damage to the landscape, and it continues damaging it. It takes a long time for it to shift and move. So a lot of these projects that we have out here are fun because we get to see these long-term effects like Audrey was talking about, of how are these plant communities are actually now shifting after 50 plus, 100 plus years of management decision choices that our great-great-grandfathers made at times of stress. So I think I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Yeah. So it sounds like there's, you mentioned that there used to be a lot of sheep and goat grazing out here. So it sounds like these impacts are happening over time. And even when we're not doing that anymore, it sounds like we really have to think as we're making management decisions now about what's going to happen in the future. Is that right?
Yeah. And it's a kicker too, because when we think about management, we also think about active management. Management can also be done poorly the wrong way with no management. Like Audrey was saying with fire intervals, some people, the landscape and the grasslands we've had out here have developed, and they have grown and they have adapted to having grazing, having fire, having things come through. And now if we want it to look a certain way, we might just not do anything to it. And maybe certain things, layman's love grass, outcompetes or whatnot. And now we have that, or just brush that comes in. It's interesting to see it shift.
That's a concept that I think is interesting for people who aren't working in the natural resources field, is that sometimes we realize that, okay, humans have come into this area and they've damaged the ecosystem. So it seems like the solution would be, well, just stop messing with it, right? Hands off, we'll let it recover, and it will do, it'll get, back to its natural state. But unfortunately, in a lot of these cases, that would be nice if it worked that way. And maybe 200 years ago, if we had stayed hands off, it would have worked. But we're not there anymore. And so that active management, it sounds like, is a component of each of your projects that is important for getting the ecosystem to be healthy and in a place that we want it to be.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Next, I was just curious if y'all could tell me, y'all are passionate about your project and we dived right into like the research side of things there. But tell me a little bit about how you came to be here in grad school at Sul Ross, and do you like it out here? What are some things that have maybe surprised you about living in Alpine or going to school here? Whoever wants to go first.
You first.
Okay. So I did my undergrad at Texas A&M and graduated back in 2018, actually. Started my undergrad like 10 years ago. I don't want to think about it. But so after I did my undergrad, I actually got a job with the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. I was in the Natural Resources Institute, and I was there for about 4.5 years. That was when I first got introduced to more of the desert southwest side of the country. Previous to that, I was in more eastern Texas, and then at one point up in Maine. And I met Dr. Frank when she was still an extension agent through my job. I met Dr. Gonzalez. He had just left the institute I worked for, but I met him through my coworkers as he came back to visit. And I met Dr. French as he was finishing his own PhD. So I met all of them through my old job, and those are all my committee cougars. And so I started bopping around in New Mexico, doing contracted environmental work for the military, and had always had grad school on the radar. It was like, well, I'll get some work under my belt, maybe save up a little bit, that kind of a deal. And then the position for my project opened up, and I jokingly was talking to Dr. Gonzalez through an old coworker of mine, and he had mentioned he was trying to find someone, and I was kind of nosily like, ooh, what project? And my coworker was basically playing telephone between the two of us, and Dr. Gonzalez was like, oh, you start January 1. And I was like, ha ha ha, funny. Sure enough, at Texas chapter, Dr. Frank came and found me. I was working at a table, and she was like, hey, we're going to go talk birds. And so I met with her that evening, and I got recruited to come out here. And, oh, shoot, in terms of like biggest surprise, I love it out here. It's a beautiful region. I had never really been in the Trans-Pecos before, even though I grew up in Texas. In terms of the surprises, I think the variety of the ecosystem, I'm like, oh, it's West Texas. It's all going to look like either like one of maybe three things. But there's an amazing variety. You go out to the Marfa or the Marathon Grasslands, which is where I'm based for my research, and it looks like kind of what you would expect bison to have been on, 200 years ago. And like you see your pronghorn, you see your cattle, you see all this open grassland. And then you start heading down closer to where Andreas is doing his work, and it's hot desert scrub. And you look at all of these areas, kind of like, that doesn't look like there's much here. And then you sit there and you really look at it, and you're like, oh no, there's so much here. And then you can still go up into the Davis Mountains and get your Sky Islands. You can go down to the Cheetahs Mountains and get into your Sky Islands and find bears and quail species that you can't see in most of the country. And it's really cool. The variety down here is so much fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to summarize real quick for any undergraduate students that might be listening. It sounds like what got you to your position that you clearly are really excited about being in today had a lot to do with networking. And I think that's an important message for students that is probably y'all both also have experience with that, is that it's important to build those professional networks, to be around other professionals, be around the professionals that do a job that you think you might want, because those connections can help you end up where you want to be. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's great. Thanks.
That's definitely true. In my case, it's almost the same, but we need more time because I'm the older man here. So my journey started maybe 18 years ago when I met Lalo Gonzalez, my advisor now. I started working with his father in the Forest and Agriculture Institute in Mexico. So we started moving some cattle and managing some cattle, and I learned a lot what they were doing, and I was involved in a world that I didn't know. So I really felt like interested in develop some kind of skills about natural resources. And Lalo's father advised me to go to the Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León, Mexico. It was another state in my country. So I took that opportunity, and I went and I did a college bachelor degree in forestry. So then when I finished my college in 2012, I started working with the National Forest Commission in Mexico. So I learned a lot about restoration and wildlife management, and for 2 years. But my goal when I started my college always was take a master's degree in the United States. So I didn't have the tools, and I didn't have enough tools yet at that time. I spent 2 more years working in a private company, which was in charge of all the waste industrial treatment. No, all the waste industrial treatments.
Industrial waste treatments. Yep.
Industrial waste treatment. That's the correct way to say it. Okay, and I worked there for 2 years, and I was in charge of all the restoration activities there too. We used to have a green garden, a big, really huge green garden producing plant, and trying to put all that plant in the ground just to restore the areas where they put all the waste. So that was really cool. I learned a lot about hydrology and how to make the nature going back to the original condition, which is not possible, never, but we make an effort every day just to do that. So, and at that time I started learning English. I spent 6 years trying to learn English. I said trying because I'm still not speaking well, but I'm trying hard. So I spent 6 years learning English. During I was working in another job position more related with administration, thinking about the environment protection in CEMEX. It was a big international company, and I had a lot of people in my charge trying to achieve goals like follow the environmental policies in Mexico for 50 different plants, concrete plants in 9 states in Mexico. It was maybe 150 people that I used to manage, and on that kind of topics only. So I had a lot of pressure there, and I learned a lot how to talk with people and all the different kind of viewpoints that they have about things, and how if you want to achieve a goal, you need to learn how to listen to them and put attention on details just to complete what you are trying to do. So that was a really, really important experience for me. So when I finished my degree in my second language, I started looking for opportunities, and Lalo Gonzalez, my advisor now, called me looking for somebody, not for me. And I said, hey, why not me? And he said, you are already working in Mexico and you have a good position there. Why you're gonna leave that position and come? I said, we just have one life, so I have that goal, and I need to achieve that goal. So that's why I'm here. I applied for the position. I convinced my advisors that I was the better option, and this was my better option too. So I'm here trying, and I'm here learning a lot about restoration. Because the project where we are involved, the Naipo Mesa Ranch project, it's amazing how more than 7 people are working with restoration in a specific point in the ranch. So all these kind of projects makes a real difference in the ground, and that's exciting. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I think that's great. So if I can summarize your kind of takeaway message maybe for students is sometimes, we go and you get your undergraduate degree and you're prepared for something, but you may not be prepared for what your big goal really is. And so you may take some different paths, you may work some different jobs, but there's always something that you can be learning from that job. So even your position prior to here, it wasn't as directly natural resources related, but you still learned a lot of things that you've brought with you now. And so I think we actually have quite a few of our graduate students worked some sort of position and then came back to graduate school. And that can be valuable, I think, to get that experience, especially if you have that mindset of I'm going to learn something that I'm going to take with me. And when I get to that point, when I get that opportunity, which you seized, and I love that you seized that opportunity when it was there in front of you, you're that much more prepared for it because of the experiences you've already had.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah. And then, of course, sometimes we do come straight from undergrad. So, Ty, you want to talk about how you got here?
Yeah. So I guess for all the other young bloods out there, I'm the cult of this establishment, I guess. But, again, I'm academically inbred, some people would say. Was an undergrad here at Sol Ross. I guess my story of getting here isn't, I guess, a job or connections or anything. It was kind of just a hobby. Growing up, I'm the son of a civil engineer and a mechanic, a helicopter mechanic. So I spent a lot of time in the garage, and I don't know, never really thought anything about agriculture or anything like that. And I had a friend, her name is Kendall Hayes, for y'all that maybe know her. And she asked if I want to come do this thing called plant identification. And I was like, that doesn't sound fun, but you know what? Hanging out with friends sounds great. So I'll go do that. And all it is just learning how to ID plants outside. And kind of doing that after school. There was just a team, and it was a contest. It was like a chess club or whatever else, academic thing there is. I don't know. I kind of got into it. And really was astounded by the ability to open your eyes outside and really see what else is out there and what it all looks like. And there's more to life than just, I guess, culture and civilization in a town. And so I never really thought about what that looks like, or thought about where your food comes from, or thinks about other products like that. And so I don't know, just kind of opened a pathway that I didn't know would be available to me. Then going through high school, coronavirus happened right when I was going to graduate. And so I was working some jobs. I was trying to figure out, do I want to go to college? Do I want to not go to college? Do I want to go just get a job somewhere? I was working at a feed store for a couple of years and had a bunch of other jobs around town that I was doing. And I don't know, I got to work there, and I got to see ranchers come in and, fulfill orders for them and see what was important to them. And it was a whole different lifestyle that I was used to. And apparently they found out I was the plant kid, and so they'd come in and bring me weeds and stuff and ask me if their cows are going to die from this. And I thought, well, look at this. Maybe I can make a career out of that. And so I kind of started looking to see what there was with that. Again, thrust into the world because of Corona. And, it was just, I was an adult now. And I had one friend, and his name is Andy James, and he was friends with Lalo and Justin and Doc and everybody. He came and did his master's degree here at Sul Ross. And he told me about this little school out here. And on top of that, I have a grandfather who I think is the best hero in the world. And he was my traveling motorcycle buddy, and we would go on motorcycle trips every year. And on the first one I ever went on when I was 12 was on a 12-hour drive in a banana yellow World War II sidecar motorcycle with my grandpa out here to Big Bend. And I'd never been anywhere but Central Texas. And I thought to myself, man, this is kind of really neat. It's like freedom, right? That's what it tastes like. And apparently there's a school out here, so I said, let's do it. So I came out here, not knowing anything, just trying to, I guess, forge my own path. I wanted to get out of Gatesville, wanted to get out of town, wanted to see something new. And I knew one guy that went here. So now I was like, well, there's a degree in some type of plant loving something, and I'm going to come here. When I got here, I introduced myself to Dr. Gonzalez. I introduced myself to Dr. French, to Doc Harbison. I just introduced myself to as many people as I could because I was just interested to see why did they think this was so important? Why were they here? I kind of came away with the biggest thing I think, and Lalo, Dr. Gonzalez says this all the time, but that we got to figure out in the next 50 years why and how can we continue living with double the amount of people with the same amount of resources or less. And so to me, that just kind of struck a chord in my heart. And so now I did my undergrad, and I decided, well, I like this gal that I'm with, and I got nothing better to do either. And I was going to see if they had a master's degree here so I could stick around. And Dr. Gonzalez offered me one, so that was good. And now I'm here, and I've learned a lot more. And the graduate program was really, really fascinating and fantastic, and the cohort's really good. And this is fun. So it's been an adventure that I didn't expect to be on or go down. Definitely different than everybody in my family, but something great. And I guess just surprisingly, the community both at Sul Ross and in Alpine is great. I wasn't expecting that. I came from a small town, but from a smaller town and a school to have such just great community between folks and people. They still have the lighting of the Christmas tree at the town square. That's pretty neat. I like that. So anyways, yeah, that's kind of my story.
Yeah, that's great. And what I love from your story that I kind of want to pull out and summarize is this idea that you tried something totally new. And sometimes I think it's easy to get in a rut with whatever you're doing, or you just kind of think this is what what my family's done. Not that there's anything bad in continuing that, but maybe you want to try something else and you think, oh no, I don't have experience in that. It's not for me. But you just kind of on a whim said, well, my friend likes plant ID. Maybe I'll give it a try. And it turns out you're great at it. And in fact, you helped lead the plant ID team here. So it turned out to be something that you had a passion for. And of course, you could have tried and not liked it, right? Yeah. But you'll never know unless you give it a shot. And I think that little bit of risk taking maybe was a neat thing for you to bring into where you are now. So, all right, the last question I want to ask y'all to wrap up today is, what's next? And I'm going to leave that totally open-ended. It doesn't have to mean what's next, like what's your career, although if you want to answer it that way, that's fine. It could be what's your next project? What are you doing tomorrow? It's just something, what's next in the life of a grad student or in the mind of you as a grad student right now?
Okay. Well, it's very much it's weirdly for me, very small scale, but also very big scale all at once. It's very much for me right now, like, what do I have to do this week? What do I do this week? I'm very much a procrastinator. When's my nearest deadline? Like, how much do I need to panic right now? But then it's also weirdly, especially at this point, so I'm a year into a roughly 2.5 year gig as a grad student. It's starting to get big scale, like what is down the road. So like I'm already just like, this time next year I'm gonna be this close to defending, it's like a year and a couple months away. It's weird to think about. We're already trying to get a lot of like serious analysis lined up for my stuff before I even get through my second field season this winter. So there's very much the like, oh no, panic, gotta survive the week. What do I have to do this week? What does my schedule look like? But then at the big scale, it's like, this is coming up. This is about to hit, light speed pretty quick. And then after that, I don't think my brain can process post December of 25, which is our target date for my graduation. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's kind of like panic on the small scale, panic on the big scale. We're going to be fine. We'll get it all figured out.
Yeah. Unfortunately, graduate school does involve some panic, right? I think that's a normal part of the graduate school experience. So we're going to stay honest on this podcast with anyone out there who's considering graduate school. Yeah. There is some panic involved sometimes.
Absolutely. So, it's a great way to learn to manage that kind of a thing. I've gotten much better at managing my time and just writing things down. So I remember I volunteered to help someone. I have this due this day, and it's not, midnight the night before where I'm absolutely freaking out. So you do learn from the panic, but there is some panic for sure.
Well, in my case, I consider myself like a man with goals, and what I'm trying to do to achieve those goals is going step to step. So what I'm gonna do first is finish my thesis. I'm just writing. I already have all my results, and we measured 2 different seasons, 2 different years. So we already have all that stuff, and I'm gonna write my thesis this 2 months to be ready to defend this in December. But I don't know if I'm gonna defend actually, but at least I'm gonna be ready to do it. So if I need to defend next semester, I'm gonna do it. But I need to be ready this year. So when I finish, I'm gonna try to looking for opportunities to get my PhD. I don't know where yet. I don't know what it's gonna be about, but I'm gonna try to do it. I think that I work after I finish my college. I worked 10 years in Mexico. So when I leave my job, I think that it's my opportunity to complete all my degrees and then go back to a regular work.
Yes,
that's my idea.
Yeah, so you've got some great goals, and I like that you've got some timelines and some flexibility, right? Because I think that's something else you learn in graduate school is you've got to have timelines. You also have to be flexible, because especially when you work in natural resources, things can happen. It can be a drought, or it can be monsoon rains, or just things happen that we can't control. And so having that mix of structured goals and flexibility is important.
Yeah, for me, well, I got goals, and I'm working on them one by one. At the moment, this week has been get better from health reasons. But no, I don't know. I think like these guys, I think it's really important to understand that you got to take things a bite at a time. Can't eat an elephant on a whole. And that's I think how it sums up grad school and all of it, and academia in a sense. And so because of that, I think I have small goals like Audrey, where it's a week or whatnot, and similar to Andreas as well. I'm interested in maybe pursuing an academic degree in the future or whatnot. Right now, I'm just trying to finish where I'm at and focus on what I'm at. But it is good to think about it. I think I don't like to think about the long-term thing sometimes because, who knows. But I guess at the end of the day, I'm a pretty food-driven animal, and I'm just thinking about dinner. So
What's for dinner?
yeah, it's going to be, what do you call it, stir-fried steak and broccoli with rice, and it's going to be delicious. Okay.
Sounds pretty good. Sounds good to me. We're all having dinner at Ty's house tonight.
Again.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. I appreciate your time, and we'll see everybody out in the field.
Thank you.
That was good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.